I am rather sleepy today. Well, not well for other reasons, but rather tired today. But you know what? I was thinking of not streaming at all, but I thought it would be in my best interest to have some degree of consistency in life. Have something I'm in control over. So even if it's only for a short while, because I would like to go out a little bit. The actual weather is nice today for a change, which is good. Even for a short while, I would like to do a little bit of a reading stream. But yes, good evening, everyone. Hello. It's me, Elijah. Elijah Phantom here. Welcome to the show. We're back again with another gentle Bambi reading stream. What happened last time in Bambi? Okay, so there was a stag, one of the older stags who was killed by he. We don't know what he is, though we can assume from the descriptions given that he is human. And yeah, it is man, and they were having a big discussion about the nature of he, and what he even is, and what it's like. Before that, Bambi also met I believe it was the king of the forest, the prince of the forest, they called him. And he was very old deer, who Bambi wants to be like, he aspires to. And also met groups like the elk and the hare and other animals who he's now become familiar with. Unless he met the hare earlier on, I can't remember actually. But yes, he's learning more and more of the world. He's now more of an adult now, and it's just become winter. There was a really interesting chapter about two leaves discussing the nature of life before one of them fell to the ground and died. Really rather interesting way of exploring that. But anyway, I think rather than waiting around, I'd actually like to just get into it today. Get into it. Find out what's going on in Bambi's sad life. And hopefully it will get to a point where Bambi can find some solace. Or maybe, I don't know, kill the humans or something. I don't know, whatever his game plan is. Actually, just before that, I found out something the other day. Excuse me. Great channel called Casual Geographic did a video talking about how many herbivores and carnivores can work the opposite way around. Like, herbivores can eat meat, and carnivores can eat plants. There's video evidence of deers eating live animals like birds and rodents and such, which is pretty horrifying. Like, I guess if they need it, they'll do anything to get some food. Yeah. They'll do anything they can to get food should it be necessary. So yeah, I was thinking, damn, Bambi's mother was wrong. Because they said, oh, will I ever have to kill something? Like, no, you'll never have to do that. And it's like, that was... Well, it's still incorrect, they don't need to, but if they need to do it, they will do it, though. So, I guess this forest is very abundant then, even in winter. But we're going to find out what happens in winter in this forest now, so... Strap in your seatbelts, ladies and gents. We're going to see what's going on here. Again, we're starting with chapter 10 here. So if you are reading along at home, feel free to start from there. Or if you just want to chill out and listen, that's also okay, no worries. So, chapter 10. Winter dragged on sometimes. Winter dragged on. I already fucked up in the very beginning. Chapter 10. Winter dragged on. Sometimes it was warmer, but then the snow would fall again, and lie deeper and deeper, so that it became impossible to scrape it away. It was worse when the thaws came, and the melted snow water froze again in the night. Then there was a thin, slippery film of ice. Often it broke in pieces, and the sharp splinters cut the deer's tender fetlocks till they bled. A heavy frost had set in several days before. The air was purer and rarer than it had ever been, and full of energy, and had begun to hum in a very, very fine, high tone. It hummed with the cold. It was silent in the woods, but something horrible happened every day. Once the crows fell upon Friend Hare's small son, who was lying sick, and killed him in a cruel way. He could be heard moaning pitifully for a long while. Friend Hare was not at home, and when he heard the sad news he was beside himself with grief. Another time, the squirrel raced about with a great wound in his neck, where the ferret had caught him. By a miracle the squirrel had escaped. He could not talk because of the pain, but he ran up and down the branches. Everyone could see him. He ran like mad. From time to time he stopped, sat down, raised his forepaws desperately, and clutched his head in terror and agony while the red blood oozed on his white chest. He ran about for an hour, then suddenly crumpled up, fell across a branch, and dropped dead in the snow. A couple of magpies flew down at once to begin their meal. Another day, a fox tore to pieces the strong and handsome pheasant who had enjoyed such general respect and popularity. His death aroused the sympathy of a wide circle, who tried to comfort his disconsolate widow. The fox had dragged the pheasant out of the snow, where he was buried, thinking himself well hidden. No one could have felt safer than the pheasant, for it all happened in broad daylight. The terrible hardship that seemed to have no end spread bitterness and brutality. It destroyed all their memories of the past, their faith in each other, and ruined every good custom they had. There was no longer either peace or mercy in the forest. It's hard to believe that it will ever be better, Bambi's mother sighed. Aunt Enna sighed too. It's hard to believe that it was ever any better, she said. And yet, Mariana said, looking in front of her, I always think how beautiful it was before. Look, old Nettler said to Aunt Enna. Your little one is trembling. She pointed to Gobbo. Does he always tremble like that? Yes, Aunt Enna answered gravely. He's shivered that way for the last few days. Well, said old Nettler in her frank way, I'm glad that I have no more children. If that little one were mine, I'd wonder if he'd last out the winter. The future really didn't look very bright for Gobbo. He was weak. He'd always been much more delicate than Bambi or Faline, and remained smaller than either of them. He was growing worse from day to day. He could not even eat the little food there was. It made his stomach ache, and he was quite exhausted by the cold and by the horrors around him. He shivered more and more, and could hardly stand up. Everyone looked at him sympathetically. Old Nettler went up to him and nudged him good-naturedly. Don't be sad, she said encouragingly. That's no way for a little prince to act. And besides, it's unhealthy. She turned away so that no one could see how moved she was. Ronno, who had settled himself a little to one side in the snow, suddenly sprang up. I don't know what it is, he mumbled and gazed around. Everyone grew watchful. What is it? They asked. I don't know, Ronno repeated. But I'm restless. I suddenly felt restless, as if something were wrong. Karas was sniffing the air. I don't smell anything. Anything strange, he declared. They all stood still, listening and snuffing the air. It's nothing. There's absolutely nothing to smell, they agreed, one after another. Nevertheless, Ronno insisted, you can say what you like. Something is wrong. Mariner said, the crows are calling. There they go calling again, Faline added quickly, but the others had already heard them. They are flying, said Karis and the others. Everybody looked up. High above the treetops, a flock of crows flapped by. They came from the farthest edge of the forest, the direction from which danger always came, and they were complaining to one another. Apparently, something unusual had happened. Wasn't I right? Asked Ronno. You can see that something has happened. What shall we do? Bambi's mother whispered anxiously. Let's get away, Aunt Enna urged in alarm. Wait, Ronno commanded. But the children, Aunt Enna replied. The children. Gobbo can't run. Go ahead, Ronno agreed. Go off with your children. I don't think there's any need for it, but I don't blame you for going. He was alert and serious. Come, Gobbo, come, Faline. Softly now, go slowly. And keep behind me. Aunt Enna warned them. She slipped away with the children. Time passed. They stood still, listening, and trembling. As if we hadn't suffered enough already, old Nettler began. We still have this to go through. She was very angry. Bambi looked at her, and when he felt that she was thinking of something horrible. 3 or 4 magpies had already begun to chatter on the side of the thicket from which the crows had come. Look out, look out, look out, out, they cried. The deer could not see them, but could hear them calling and warning each other. Sometimes one of them and sometimes all of them together would cry, Look out, out, out! Then they came nearer. They fluttered in terror from tree to tree, peered back and fluttered away again in fear and alarm. Ah! Cried the jays. They screamed their warning loudly. Suddenly, all the deer shrunk together at once, as though a blow had struck them. Then they stood still, snuffing the air. It was he. A heavy wave of scent blew past. There was nothing they could do. The scent filled their nostrils, it numbed their senses, made their hearts stop beating. The magpies were still chattering. The jays were still screaming overhead. In the woods around them, everything had sprung to life. The titmice flitted through the branches like tiny feathered balls, chirping, Run, run! The blackbirds fled swiftly, and darkly above them with long-drawn twittering cries. Through the dark tangle of bare bushes, they saw on the white snow a wild, aimless scurrying of smaller, shadowy creatures. These were the pheasants. Then a flash of red streaked by. That was the fox. But no one was afraid of him now, for that fearful scent kept streaming on in a wider wave, sending terror into their hearts and uniting them all in one mad fear. In a single, feverish impulse to flee, to save themselves. The mysterious, overpowering scent filled the woods with such strength that they knew that this time he was not alone, but had come with many others, and there would be no end to the killing. They did not move. They looked at the titmice, whisking away in a sudden flutter at the blackbirds and the squirrels who dashed to treetop in mad bounds. They knew that all the little creatures on the ground had nothing to fear, but they understood their flight when they smelled him, for no forest creature could bear his presence. Presently, Friend Hare hopped up. He hesitated, sat still, and then hopped on again. What is it? Karis called after him impatiently, but Friend Hare only looked around with bewildered eyes and could not even speak. He was completely terrified. What's the use of asking? Said Ronno gloomily. Friend Hare gasped for breath. "We're surrounded," he said in a lifeless voice. "We cannot escape on any side. He is everywhere." At the same instant, they heard his voice. 20 or 30 strong, he cried, "Ho! Ho! Ha! Ha!" It roared like the sound of winds in storms. He beat on the tree trunks as though they were drums. It was racking and terrifying. A distant twisting and rending of parted bushes rang out. There was a snapping and cracking of broken boughs. He was coming. He was coming into the heart of the thicket. Then, short, whistling, flute-like trills sounded together, with the loud flap of soaring wings. A pheasant rose from under his very feet. The deer heard the wing beats of the pheasant grow fainter as he mounted into the air. There was a loud crash like thunder. Then silence. Then a dull thud on the ground. "He is dead," said Bambi's mother, trembling. "The first," Ronno added. The young doe, Marina, said, "In this very hour, many of us are going to die. Perhaps I shall be one of them." No one listened to her, for a mad terror had seized them all. Bambi tried to think, but his savage noises grew louder and paralyzed Bambi's senses. He heard nothing but those noises. They numbed him, while amidst the howling, shouting, and crashing, he could hear his own heart pounding. He had felt nothing but curiosity, and did not even realize that he was trembling. Trembling in every limb. From time to time, his mother whispered in his ear, "Stay close to me." She was shouting, but in the uproar it sounded to Bambi as if she were whispering. Her "stay close to me" encouraged him. It was like a chain holding him. Without it, he would have rushed it off senselessly, and he heard it at the very moment when his wits were wandering and wanted to dash away. He looked around. All sorts of creatures were swarming past, scampering blindly over one another. A pair of weasels ran by like thin, snake-like streaks. The eye could scarcely follow them. A ferret listened as though bewitched to every shriek that desperate friend heard let out. A fox was standing in a whole flurry of fluttering pheasants. They paid no attention to him. They ran right under his nose, and he paid no attention to them. Motionless, with his head thrust forward, he listened to the onrushing tumult, lifting his pointed ears and snuffed the air with his nose. Only his tail moved, slowly wagging, with his intense concentration. A pheasant dashed up. He'd come from where the danger was at what was worst, and was beside himself with fear. "Don't try to fly," he shouted to the others. "Don't fly, just run! Don't lose your head! Don't try to fly, just run! Run! Run!" He kept repeating the same thing over and over again, as though to encourage himself. But he no longer knew what he was saying. "Ho! Ho! Ha! Ha!" came the death's cry, from quite near, apparently. "Don't lose your head," screamed the pheasant, and at the same time his voice broke in a whistling gasp, and, spreading his wings, he flew up with a loud whir. Bambi watched how he flew, straight up, directly between the trees, beating his wings. The dark metallic blue and greenish-brown markings on his body gleamed like gold. His long tail feathers swept proudly behind him. A short crash like thunder sounded sharply. The pheasant suddenly crumpled up in mid-flight. He turned, head over tail, as though he wanted to catch his claws with his beak, and then dropped violently to earth. He fell among the others. and did not move again. Then everyone lost his senses. They all rushed toward one another. 5 or 6 pheasants rose at one time with a loud whir. "Don't fly!" cried the rest, and ran. The thunder cracked 5 or 6 times, and more of the flying birds dropped lifeless to the ground. "Come," said Bambi's mother. Bambi looked around. Ronno and Karas had already fled. Old Nettler was disappearing. Only Mariner was still beside them. Bambi went with his mother, Mariner following them timidly. All around them was a roaring and shouting, and the thunder was crashing. Bambi's mother was calm. She trembled quietly, but she kept her wits together. "Bambi, my child," she said, "keep behind me all the time. We'll have to get out of here and cross the open place. But now, we'll go slowly." The din was maddening. The thunder crashed 10, 12 times as he hurled it from his hands. "Watch out," said Bambi's mother. "Don't run. But when we have to cross the open place, run as fast as you can. And don't forget, Bambi, my child, don't pay any attention to me when we get out there. Even if I fall, don't pay attention to me. Just keep on running. Do you understand, Bambi?" His mother walked carefully, step by step, amidst the uproar. The pheasants were running up and down, burying themselves in the snow. Suddenly, they would spring out and begin to run again. The whole hare family was hopping to and fro, squatting down and then hopping again. No one said a word. They were all spent. With terror and numbed by the din and the thunderclaps. It grew lighter in front of Bambi and his mother. The clearing showed through the bushes. Behind them, the terrifying drumming on the tree trunks came crashing nearer and nearer. The breaking branches snapped. There was a roaring of "Ha! Ha! Ho! Ho!" Then Friend Hare and 2 of his cousins rushed past them across the clearing. Bang! Pang! Bang! Roared the thunder. Bambi saw how one hare struck an elder in the middle of his flight, and lay with his white belly turned upward. He quivered a little, and then was still. Bambi stood petrified. But from behind him came the cry, "Here they are! Run! Run!" There was a loud clapping of wings suddenly opened. There were gasps, sobs, and showers of feathers. Flutterings, the pheasants took wing, and the whole flock rose almost all in one instant. The air was throbbing with repeated thunderclaps and the dull thuds of the fallen and the high, piercing shrieks of those who had escaped. Bambi heard steps and looked behind him. He was there. He came bursting through the bushes on all sides. He sprang up everywhere, struck about him, beat the bushes, drummed on the tree trunks, and shouted with a fiendish voice. "Now," said Bambi's mother, "get away from here and don't stay too close to me." She was off with a bound that barely skimmed the snow. Bambi rushed out after her. The thunder crashed around them on all sides. It seemed as if the earth had split in half. Bambi saw nothing. He kept running. A growing desire to get away from him, the tumult and out of reach of that scent, which seemed to strangle him, the growing impulse to flee, the longing to save himself, were loosed in him at last. He ran. It seemed to him as if he saw his mother hit, but he did not know if it was really she or not. He felt a film come over his eyes. From fear of the thunder crashing behind him, it had gripped him completely at last. He could think of nothing or see nothing around him. He kept rushing. The open space was crossed. Another thicket took him in. The hue and cry still rung behind him. The sharp reports still thundered, and in the branches above him there was a light pattering like the first fall of hail. Then it grew quieter. Bambi kept running. A dying pheasant, with its neck twisted, lay on the snow, beating feebly with its wings. When he heard Bambi coming, he ceased his convulsive movements and whispered, "It's all over with me." Bambi paid no attention to him and ran on. A tangle of bushes he blundered into forced him to slacken his pace and look for a path. He pawed the ground impatiently with his hoofs. "This way!" called someone with a gasping voice. Bambi obeyed involuntarily and found an opening at once. Someone moved feebly in front of him. It was friend Hare's wife who had called. "Can you help me a little?" she said. Bambi looked at her and shuddered. Her hind leg dangled lifelessly in the snow, dyeing it red and melting it with warm, oozing blood. "Can you help me a little?" she repeated. She spoke as if she were well and whole, almost as if she were happy. "I don't know what can have happened to me," she went on. There's really no sense to it. I just can't seem to walk." In the middle of her words, she rolled over on her side and died. Bambi was seized with horror again and ran. "Bambi!" He stopped with a jolt. A deer was calling him. Again he heard the cry. "Is that you, Bambi?" Bambi saw Gobbo floundering helplessly in the snow. All his strength was gone. He could no longer stand on his feet. He lay there half buried and lifted his head feebly. Bambi went up to him excitedly. "Where's your mother, Gobbo?" he asked, gasping for breath. "Where's Faline?" Bambi spoke quickly and impatiently. Terror still gripped his heart. "Mother and Faline had to go on," Gobbo answered resignedly. He spoke softly, but as seriously and as well as a grown deer. "They had to leave me here. I fell down. You must go on too, Bambi." "Get up," cried Bambi. "Get up, Gobbo. You've rested long enough. There's not a minute to lose now. Get up and come with me." "No, leave me," Gobbo answered quietly. "I can't stand up. It's impossible. I'd like to, but I'm too weak." "What will happen to you?" Bambi persisted. "I don't know. Probably I'll die," said Gobbo simply. The uproar began again and re-echoed. New crashes of thunder followed. Bambi shrank together. Suddenly, a branch snapped. Young Karas pounded swiftly through the snow, galloping ahead of the din. "Run!" he called when he saw Bambi. "Don't stand there if you can run!" He was gone in a flash, and his headlong flight carried Bambi along with it. Bambi was hardly aware that he had begun to run again, and only after an interval did he say, Goodbye, Gobbo." But he was already too far away. Gobbo could no longer hear him. He ran till nightfall through the woods that was filled with shouting and thunder. As darkness closed in, it grew quiet. Soon a light wind carried away the horrible scent that spread everywhere. But the excitement remained. The first friend whom Bambi saw again was Ronno. He was limping more than ever. "Over in the oak grove, the fox has a burning fever from his wound," Ronno said. "I just passed him. He's suffering terribly. He keeps biting the snow and the ground." "Have you seen my mother?" asked Bambi. "No," answered Ronno evasively, and walked quickly away. Later, during the night, Bambi met old Nettler with Faline. All three were delighted to meet. "Have you seen my mother?" asked Bambi. No, Balin answered. I don't even know where my own mother is. Well, said old Nettler cheerfully, here's a nice mess. I was so glad that I didn't have to bother with children anymore, and now I have to look after two at once. I'm heartily grateful. Bambi and Balin laughed. They talked about Gobbo. Bambi told how he had found him, and they grew so sad they began to cry. But old Nettler would not have them crying. Before everything else, you've got to get something to eat. I never heard of such a thing. You haven't had to buy to eat this livelong day. She led them to places where there were still a few leaves that had not completely withered. Old Nettler was wonderfully gentle. She ate nothing herself, but made Bambi and Balin eat heartily. She poured away the snow from the grassy spots and ordered them to eat with. The grass is good here. Or else she would say, no, wait, I'll find something better farther on. But between whiles she would grumble, it's perfectly ridiculous the trouble children give you. Suddenly, they saw Aunt Anna coming and rushed toward her. Aunt Anna! Cried Bambi. He had seen her first. Balin was beside herself with joy and bounded around her. Mother! She cried. But Anna was weeping and nearly dead from exhaustion. Gobbo is gone, she cried. I've looked for him. I went to the little place where he lay when he broke down in the snow. There is nothing there. He is gone. My poor little Gobbo. Old Nettler grumbled. If you had looked for his tracks, it would have been more sensible than crying, she said. There weren't any tracks, said Aunt Anna. But his tracks were there. He found Gobbo. She was silent. Then Bambi asked despondently, Aunt Anna, have you seen my mother? No, answered Aunt Anna gently. Bambi never saw his mother again. Well, that was rather heavy. A rather heavy chapter indeed. Hopefully I was able to do that a bit of justice. But yes, what a violent chapter in the story. Poor Bambi. Poor Bambi. If you've ever Watership Down, you'll know a lot of children's books do get very violent, especially if they're older. A lot of newer ones don't seem to do that from like the 80s and 90s onwards. I don't remember when this book was written. Hang on, let me just double check. Because this edition I have was in 2013. It's a more recent edition. It was released originally in 1928. So yeah, they had a grit to them back then. Chapter 11. At last the willows shed their catkins. Everything was turning green, but the young leaves on the trees and bushes were still tiny. Glowing with the soft, early morning light, they looked fresh and smiling like children who have just awakened from sleep. Bambi was standing in front of a hazel bush, beating his new antlers against the wood. It was very pleasant to do that. And an absolute necessity besides, since skin and hide still covered his splendid antlers. The skin had to come off, of course, and no sensible creature would ever wait until it split of its own accord. Bambi pounded his antlers till the skin split, and long strips of it dangled about his ears. As he pounded on the hazel stems again and again, he felt how much stronger his antlers were than the wood. This feeling shot through him in a rush of power and pride. He beat more fiercely on the hazel bush and tore its bark into long pieces. The white body of the tree showed naked and quickly turned a rusty red in the open air. But Bambi paid no attention to that. He saw the bright wood of the tree flash under his strokes, and it heartened him. A whole row of hazel bushes bore the traces of his work. "Well, you are nearly grown now," said a cheerful voice close by. Bambi tossed his head and looked around him. There sat the squirrel observing him in a friendly way. From overhead came a short, shrill laugh. Bambi and the squirrel were both half frightened, but the woodpecker, who was clinging to an oak trunk, called down, "Excuse me, but I always have to laugh when I see you deer acting like that." "What is there to laugh at?" asked Bambi politely. "Oh," said the woodpecker, "you go at things in such a wrong-headed way. In the first place, you ought to try big trees. You can't get anything out of those little whips of hazel stalks." "What should I get out of them?" Bambi asked. "Bugs," said the woodpecker with a laugh. "Bugs and grubs, do like this." He drummed on the oak. Trunk, tick, 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 tick. The squirrel rushed up and scolded him. "What are you talking about?" he said. "The prince isn't looking for bugs and grubs." "Why not?" said the woodpecker in high glee. "It tastes fine." He bit a bug in half and swallowed it and began drumming again. "Oh, you don't understand," the squirrel went on, scolding. "A noble lord like that has far higher aims. You're only casting reflection on yourself by such talk." "It's all the same to me," answered the woodpecker. "A fig for higher aims," he cried cheerfully, and fluttered away. The squirrel bustled down again. "Don't you remember me?" he said, putting on a pleased expression. "Very well," answered Bambi in a friendly way. "Do you live up there?" he asked, pointing to the oak. The squirrel looked at him good-humouredly. "You're mixing me up with my grandmother," he said. "I knew you were mixing me up with her. My grandmother used to live up there when you were just a baby, Prince Bambi. She often told me about you. The ferret killed her long ago, last winter. You may remember it." "Yes," Bambi nodded. "I've heard about it." "Well, afterward my father settled here," the squirrel went on. He sat erect and held both forepaws politely over his white chest. "But maybe you've got me mixed up with my father too. Did you know my father?" "I'm sorry," Bambi replied, "but I never had that pleasure." "I thought so," the squirrel exclaimed, satisfied. "Father was so surly and so shy. He had nothing to do with anybody." "Where is he now?" Bambi inquired. "Oh," said the squirrel. "The owl caught him a month ago. Yes, and now I'm living up there myself. I'm quite content, since I was born up there." Bambi turned to go. "Wait!" cried the squirrel quickly. I didn't mean to talk about all that. I wanted to say something quite different." Bambi stopped. "What is it?" he asked patiently. "Yes," said the squirrel. "What is it?" He thought a little while, and then gave a quick skip and sat erect, balancing up with his splendid tail. He looked at Bambi. Right you are, he shouted on. Now, I know what it was I wanted to say to you, say that your antlers are almost grown now, and that you're going to be a remarkably handsome person. Do you really think so? Said Bambi joyfully. Remarkably handsome, cried the squirrel, and pressed his forepaws rapturously against his white chest. So tall, so stately, with such long, bright prongs to your antlers. You don't often see the like. Really? Bambi asked. He was so delighted that he immediately began to beat the hazel stems again. He tore off long ribbons of bark. All the while the squirrel kept on talking. I must say that very few have antlers like those at your age. It doesn't seem possible. I saw you several times from a distance last summer. I can hardly believe that you're the same creature. You were such a thin little shaver then. Bambi suddenly grew silent. Goodbye, he said hastily. I have to go now. And he ran off. He didn't like to be reminded of last summer. He had a difficult time of it since then. At first, after his mother's disappearance, he had felt quite lost. The long winter was interminable. Spring came hesitatingly, and it was late before things began to turn green. Without old Nettler, Bambi might not even have pulled through at all, but she looked after him and helped him where she could. In spite of that, he was alone for a good deal. He missed Gobbo at every turn. Poor Gobbo. He was dead too, like the rest of them. Bambi thought of him often during that winter, and for the first time, he really began to appreciate how good and lovable Gobbo had been. He seldom saw Faline. She stayed with her mother most of the time, and seemed to have grown unusually shy. Later, when it had finally grown warm, Bambi began to feel his old self once more. He flourished his first antler on high, and was very proud of it. But bitter disappointment soon followed. The other bucks chased him whenever they saw him. They drove him away angrily. They would not let him come near them until finally he was afraid to take a step for fear of being caught. He was afraid to show himself anywhere, and slunk along hidden trails in a very downcast frame of mind. As the summer days grew warmer, a remarkable restlessness seized him. His heart felt more and more oppressed with a sense of longing that was both pleasant and painful. Whenever he chanced to see Faline or one of her friends, though only at a distance, a rush of incomprehensible excitement crept over him. Often it happened that he recognized her track, or the air he snuffed told him she was near. Then he would feel himself irresistibly drawn toward her. When he gave way to his desire, he always came to grief. Either he met no one after wandering around for a long while, had to admit that they were avoiding him, or he ran across one of the bucks, who immediately sprang at him, beat him, and kicked him, and chased him disgracefully away. Ronno and Karas had treated him worst of all. No, that hadn't been a happy time. And now the squirrel had stupidly reminded him of it. Suddenly he became quite wild and started to run. The titmice and hedge sparrows flitted, frightened, through the bushes as he passed, and he asked each other in a fluster, "What was that?" Bambi did not hear them. A couple of magpies chattered nervously. "What happened?" the jay cried angrily. "What is the matter with you?" Bambi paid no attention to him. Overhead the yellowbird sang from tree to tree. "Good morning, I'm happy." Bambi did not answer. The thicket was very bright and shot through with sunbeams. Bambi did not stop to think about such things. Suddenly, there was a loud whir of wings. A whole rainbow of gorgeous colours flashed from under Bambi's very feet and shone so close to his eyes that he stopped, dazzled. It was Jonello, the pheasant. He had flown up in terror, for Bambi had nearly stepped on him. He fled away, scolding. "I've never heard of such a thing!" he cried in his split, crackling voice. Bambi stood still in astonishment and stared after him. "Turned out all right this time, but it really was inconsiderate," said a soft, twittering voice close to the ground. It was Jonalina, the pheasant's wife. I should do a woman's voice there. She was sitting on the ground, hovering over her eggs. "My husband was terribly frightened," she went on in an irritable tone. "And so was I. I don't dare stir from this spot. I wouldn't stir from this spot no matter what happened. You could step on me and I wouldn't move." Bambi was a little embarrassed. "I beg your pardon," he stammered. I didn't mean to do it." "Oh, not at all," the pheasant's wife replied. "It was nothing so dreadful after all. But my husband and I are so nervous at present. You can understand why." Bambi didn't understand why at all and went on. He was quieter now. The forest sang around him. The light grew more radiant and warmer. The leaves and the bushes, the grass underfoot, and the moist, steaming earth began to smell more sweetly. Bambi's young strength swelled with him, and streamed through all his limbs so that he walked around stiffly, with awkward, restrained movements, like a mechanical thing. He went up to a low alder shrub, and, lifting his feet high, beat on the earth with such savage blows that the dirt flew. His two sharp-pointed hoofs cut the turf that grew there. They scraped away the wood vetch and leeks, the violets and snowbells, till the bare earth was furrowed in front of him. Every blow sounded dully. Two moles who were rubbing among the tangled roots of an old sycamore tree grew anxious and, looking out, saw Bambi. "That's a ridiculous way to do things," said one mole. "I've heard of anybody digging that way." The mole drew down on one corner of his mouth in a scornful sneer. "He doesn't know anything, you can see that right off," he said. "That's why it was when people meddle with things they know nothing about." Suddenly, Bambi listened, tossed up his head, listened again, and peered through the leaves. A flash of red showed through the branches. The prongs of an antler gleamed indistinctly. Bambi snorted. Whoever it might be who was circling around him, whether it was Karis or somebody else, didn't matter. "Forward," thought Bambi as he charged. "I'll show them that I'm not afraid of them," he thought, as though suddenly exultant. "I'll show them that they'd better look out for me." The branches rustled with fury of his charge. The bushes cracked and broke. Then Bambi saw the other deer right in front of him. He did not recognize him, for everything was swimming before his eyes. He thought of nothing but forward. His antlers lowered. He rushed on. All his strength was concentrated on his shoulders. He was ready for the blow. Then he smelled his opponent's hide, but he saw nothing ahead of him but the red wall of his flank. Then the other stag made a very slight turn, and Bambi, not meeting the resistance he expected, charged past him into the empty air. He nearly went head over heels. He staggered, pulled himself together, and made ready for a fresh onslaught. Then he recognized the old stag. Bambi was so astonished that he lost his self-possession. He was ashamed to run away, as he would have liked to do, but he's also ashamed to stay there. He didn't move. "Well?" asked the old stag quietly and gently. His voice was so frank, and yet so commanding, it pierced Bambi to the heart. He was silent. "Well?" the old stag repeated. I thought," Bambi stammered. I thought it was Ronno, or..." He stopped and risked a shy glance at the old stag. And this glance confused him still more. The old stag stood motionless and powerful. His head had turned completely white by now, and his proud, dark eyes glowed in their depths. "Why don't you charge me?" the old stag asked. Bambi looked at him, filled with a wonderful ecstasy, and shaken by a mysterious tremor. He wanted to cry out, "It's because I love you!" But he merely answered, "I don't know." The old stag looked at him. "It's a long time since I've seen you," he said. "You've grown big and strong." Bambi did not answer. He trembled with joy. The old stag went on examining him critically. Then he came unexpectedly up to Bambi, who was terribly frightened. "Act bravely," said the old stag. He turned around, and in the next moment had disappeared. Bambi remained in that place for a long while. That's the end of the chapter. So, today is a shorter stream today. I did not turn the audio off, so that was on the entire time there, but oh well, it's fine. I think we're going to, today's meant to be a shorter stream, so we'll leave it there today, so next time it's going to be chapter 12. Yeah, it is, I don't know why, I've just, not been feeling that good today. I did try baking earlier on, baking this apple cake, which messed up. It was really gross. So, I must have messed up the amount of flour I put in, or maybe put in a bit too much butter. Okay, so, it said like 120 grams of butter for this cake recipe, and I put in 125 grams, like surely 5 grams won't matter. And it was really, there was a lot of oil leaking out of it, and like, oh god, I fucked this up. And I assume there must have been some mistake with the amount of flour I used. Maybe I didn't use enough. But yeah, that was a little annoying. Baking's hard. I went out to Aldi today to get some C batteries for a weighing scale I have. Didn't have any, and I'm like, ugh. And this scale I have, fucking awful. It came with a battery, and it doesn't fucking... It had like one usage in it, and that was it. I'm like, great stuff. This is how they get you, I guess. So I guess I need to go somewhere else to get some C batteries, I guess. Very annoying. I don't know. All very, very annoying. But it's fine. It's not the end of the world. Baking's hard, though. Sometimes it seems like I do better off when I don't pay much attention to the measuring status of it. I don't know. I was like, oh, the measurements are very important in baking. Make sure you know them all. I don't know. It seems like I end up baking better when I don't really care as much about that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me. Who knows? Well. Yeah, well. I don't know if you heard that. There was a big banging noise then. Anyway. I want to get better at baking, but it seems difficult to do. Maybe I should just stick to cooking for now and try a bit more baking stuff some other time. Because it's expensive as well when you try and do stuff and it fails. And I'm like, ugh, great, love that. Lovely. Awesome. Great stuff. Yeah. Well, it'll be cheaper to just use vegetable spread rather than butter there, which may be something I'll have to do going forward in like test batches. But either way, there's no point complaining about it now. It's already done. It is already done. If I'm being honest, I'm just trying to stall until I get to the 1 hour mark because I feel bad about doing it like a 58-minute stream. But yeah. What are the plans for next week? I tell you what, I've not been practicing the Okami run recently. I've just not been in the mood to do it. I got stuck on one trick and I just kind of been like hit a wall with it. What I have been doing is playing a lot of Goddess of Victory Nikkei recently, like a lot of it. I should probably stop playing it as much. But man, have you seen the new character, Brady? Brady's great. She's got the tummy. Everyone loves a little bit of chubby. You just want to bite into it, you know? Yeah, she's great. Yeah. Saw a really good cosplayer and like, god damn, that's hot. But yeah, very nice character design. We all love tummy here. Yeah. Need some more characters with tummy. Tum. Right. I'm trying. What should I eat for food tonight? I'm not sure yet. I don't know. I'm not really in the mood to cook anything. I've already fucked up with baking earlier, so it's kind of not put me in the best of moods to do it. I feel like I need to be taking my antidepressants a bit more. I feel like I'm way more depressed. I think I've mentioned this before on stream recently. I feel like I might be more depressed than I actually realise. So, because I've been eating a lot more recently. I feel like that might be a result of me, like, just being really low in mood. So, I should start taking my antidepressants more. Tell you what, I barely drank any water here. I had a cup of water here the entire time. I barely drank any of it. Oh. Refreshing. But yeah. Next week, we're probably doing more Mystery Dungeon. I feel like maybe I should do a poll for books to read in the future. I think what I'm going to do is, after Mystery Dungeon, I may buy Inscription. Which hopefully should be cheap. Cheaper than any of the new Nintendo stuff coming out. Jesus Christ, £90 for a game. That is insane. Obscenely expensive. Like, there's no way that is a reasonable price to pay for a game like that. That game better be the best thing ever fucking made. Man, there's way more indie games now, which I'm. I think that's why a lot of the times where I just play a lot of older games now, a lot of them are just cheaper if you know the ways to get them. But yeah, new games are so expensive. What's the point in getting them? Oh well, it's fine. Anyway, we're gonna leave it here for today, folks. Tomorrow we'll be starting from chapter 12. Tell you what, let's change that already just so we remember. Chapter 12. Coolio. We'll start from chapter 12 onwards next week, and yeah, I'll see you all in a bit. If there's any change, I'll post the schedule probably on Monday. If there's any changes, I'll post it in the Discord. So yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Keep well, stay safe, eat lots of good food, and I shall see you next time. Thank you. Bye. 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 Bye.